What is Probook AI and why are you sitting here today?
Probook is an AI dispatching platform that sends technicians to the right calls using historical data.
You're one of the fastest growing startups right now. First of all, how did you do this and how are you feeling right now with all this growth?
We've actually had to put a pause on growth because we're growing so fast and we don't want our experience to suffer.
When you're getting started and you're really trying to build something 0 to 1, you're trying to go against the laws of probability. Scale is the least of your problems. People mistakenly think that the product is what you need to focus on at the beginning. But what matters so much more is the market. What were you doing before Probook, George?
I was in school.
By the grace of God, you just graduated,
Barely.
How does the world look like without Probook? Welcome to another episode of the Rilla Labs, everybody. My name is Sebastian Jimenez, the founder and CEO of Rilla, and your host. And we are here today at the Rilla Labs at 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time on a Sunday night in New York City with the founder and CEO of Probook AI, George Eliadis. Welcome to the Rilla Labs.
Sebastian, thank you so much for having me. I'm really pumped to do this. I've been wanting to do this for the past God knows how many months. Let's get after it.
Let's do it, man. George, for people who are watching who don't know who you are and what you do, tell them who you are, what is Probook AI, and why are you sitting here today?
Yeah, so Probook is an AI dispatching platform that sends technicians to the right calls using historical data. Probook also texts customers updates throughout the day, and it actually researches customers to figure out more information on them so we can get the right tech to the right call. And we're just taking what was otherwise a manual process of dispatching and trying to match text to jobs and makes it entirely automated using AI and machine learning insights.
So tell me how the world was before Probook. Who is you having this problem? There's a contractor out there. What are they doing? What trades are they doing? And how does the world look like without Probook?
Yeah, so let's imagine you're an HVAC, plumbing, and or electrical company, and you've got 40 technicians out in the field running service calls. You'll have different jobs that arrive during the day that are different degrees of problems. You'll have HVAC units that are 12 years old that are not cooling in the middle of summer. You'll have maintenance on a system that you just installed 2 years ago. You'll have plumbing calls where a sump pump's not working. You'll have a leaking water heater that's 2 years old. You'll have a leaking water heater that's 9 years old that needs to be replaced. And you've got all these calls, and you've got dispatchers. And dispatchers sit at a dispatch board, and they basically match technicians to jobs. Because remember, we have 40 technicians, and we've got 152 jobs to play Tetris, to play chess and reshuffle. So throughout the day as a dispatcher, I'm just playing Tetris. I'm matching job to technician. And I'm trying to use some kind of mental model to send text to the right calls, but it's usually not the most data driven. And on top of that, I've got customers calling in throughout the day saying, hey, where's my technician? And then I've got technicians calling in to debrief and say, hey, I'm ready, give me my next call. So as a dispatcher, you're supposed to be making data-driven decisions. You also have to think about routing. And at the same time, you're being pulled in a million directions by your customers and your technicians. And basically, to be a dispatcher, you have to be really hardcore. And you just have to be able to get pulled in a million different directions and not crumble. And it's just a lot of decision-making, a lot of customers to keep happy, a lot of technicians to manage. And when you have this kind of scale and you're managing technicians, managing customers, managing dispatching, one or two of the three optimizers end up, suffering. Either you make decisions that are not data driven, that cost the company money. You're either neglecting customer experience because the board is so hectic that the only thing you can do is match jobs to text, or your technicians feel unsupported. And you're optimizing for too many things and you're just doing too much things and not enough time to do them.
How do you solve that problem?
So the first thing we do is we use historical data. We'll look at a call, let's say an HVAC system that's 12 years old, that's not cooling, and we'll figure out exactly how much each tech is sold at that type of job. We'll also look at how much their TGLs have sold for downstream when we think
and TGLs is
tech-generated leads. So every time a service technician goes to a call and they sell a repair, that's repair sales. Mm-hmm. Every time a technician goes to a call and recommends that the customer gets a comfort advisor or a comfort consultant out here to assess potentially replacing the system because their system is over 10 years old, it may not make financial sense to actually invest more repairs into it. It might just make sense to get peace of mind and replace it all together. every time that happens, that service tech is generating what's called tech generated lead. And Probook will look at tech generated lead sales in addition to repair sales and figure out exactly how much the technician that goes to that service call will generate downstream on average. So we're getting a certain job type, and for each technician, we're getting a number. And then we're also thinking about driving time, and we're actually reshuffling your dispatch board in real time and re-optimizing it as new calls arrive. So the chess is always being maximized for what we call EV, or expected value, between all of your technicians and all of their performance histories. And that's like the first part of the problem that we solve.
If I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, so there's a very complicated game of Tetris that's being played at all times with the dispatcher.
Correct.
And before Probook, a human being has to make a split-second decision as to multiple times a day, like, hundreds of times a day, to match the best person to the best job, taking into account, how likely are they to close that deal, taking into account where they are right now in the world and where that job is, taking into account what other opportunities are available. So there's a lot of data, and I have to make a split-second decision. Human beings are not that great at doing those decisions without some software to aid them. And Probook is automating the whole thing. So as a company, do you need dispatchers with Probook, or like how does it work with the dispatchers?
Yeah, so you still do need dispatchers because setting the board and assigning calls is just one part of the problem. That's a big part of the problem, but you still need to talk to customers. You still need to keep them updated throughout the day. And you still need to debrief technicians. The next thing Probook does, and it's one of our more recent products, is actually having Probook like update your customers automatically throughout the day. We'll literally send your customers a text if the technician's running late. Hey, Mrs. Smith, you're still on the schedule. Your technician's finishing up with their calls. We'll reach out when they're on the way. And Probook will send those updates out automatically, which helps like reduce the amount of inbound calls that dispatchers and CSRs get from customers asking, where's my technician? Because Probook is preemptively going out there and reaching out to them for them. So we're going for more and more parts of the dispatcher function. So we could, with time, make Probook actually help companies operate with, less dispatchers for their set of technicians.
How are you? So it sounds like the software is just like moving a lot of different pieces. How are you using AI exactly? Is it like the machine learning that looks at the data that tries to predict like what's the best technician? Like, is it in the way that it interacts with the board? How are you guys using AI exactly?
Yeah, so there's a few important nuances there, as you kind of just alluded to. Like, we use machine learning to make a prediction as far as how much each technician is going to sell at a given type of job. A job type as well as tags in Service Titan. And those tags are basically attributes that help us appraise the value of a certain job, right? So we have a machine learning model that forecasts job values. We have machine learning models that forecast a few other metrics, like how long do techs take on average at a given call. So there's a bunch of parameters in there, and we can talk about that, elsewhere if someone would like to. And then there's also a Gen AI component of we can now actually go into invoice notes on past jobs, job summaries. Next thing we're actually building right now is transcribing phone calls between CSRs and homeowners, so we can better and more accurately label jobs, so our machine learning model can value them better because we'll have more features that are automatically labeled.
Got it. So the AI is basically just processing all of the different data points that you have about that customer and that technician before the job is made, trying to effectively predict whether the job is going to sell or not.
Correct.
So that you can make the right decision. And this is, we talk about like there's a lot of complexity behind building this product. It's, from a software perspective, it's complicated. From an AI perspective, it's difficult. From a just an operational perspective of getting it to work with the user from a product perspective, it's a difficult product. But at the end of the day, what you're really trying to create is a really simple experience where the magic is just like the board, it's moving on its own. And you're kind of like playing the game of Tetris. It's basically like playing itself.
Yeah, exactly.
You just put it on it's like the video game, you just have the AI bot playing the video game for you.
It's like you're playing against the CPU. Yeah.
And
Probook's the CPU.
And that's what you're trying to create. And that's like, a lot of the best companies that I've seen, it's just like you take a really simple problem and you present a really simple solution simplicity is difficult, right? To create, like you think about the iPhone, like the best, simple to use product ever. All the complexity, all the chip technology, all the facial recognition technology, all of the, all of the things that went into making this really simple device that you could just swipe and start using. Like, it was so intuitive. George, your company's doing this. I've known you for a little bit now. you are actually one of the, with this very simple kind of product that's very difficult to make, but this very simple product, solving a very simple, very specific problem, you're one of the fastest growing startups right now. And you're one of the fastest growing startups of all time. I say that because you're actually the only startup that I've met to date, like right now, that's growing faster than Rilla was growing back when we were at your stage where we were just getting started. Because you just started really like a few months ago, like what, 5 months ago?
Yeah, we started like officially selling, I'd say 6 months ago. We were like in beta before that, but our product we had a lot of learning to do. We'll just say that. We weren't charging for it. And those were our earliest like beta users, I would say.
So you started selling the product 6 months ago, and you're growing faster than Rilla, which is great. We grew pretty fast, man. So
you guys did grow pretty fast.
How did you do this, and how's it feeling right now? Because I mean, people can't see because of the lighting. It's pitch black outside. George is here on Sundays on a Sunday at 7:40 p.m. Eastern time. First of all, how did you do this, and how are you feeling right now with all this growth?
We've actually had to like put a pause on growth because we need to get our stuff together internally and hire some customer success people because we're growing so fast and we don't want our experience to suffer. So for some backstory, the reason we've been able to grow this sustainably is that we pour a lot into our customer experience. We actually launch every single customer we work with on site, which is why Sebastian's saying I'm only here on Sundays, because Monday to Friday, every single week, we're visiting customers and getting them launched. Like I'm flying to South Carolina in about like 9 hours. And then we're going to Delaware, and then we're going to Jersey. And then the next week we're doing Virginia, Ohio, then Wisconsin. Then we're going to Massachusetts, Georgia, Minnesota, Oklahoma. So it's like we're launching everyone in person, which is great. It really helps the customer experience for them. And all of our customers either use Teams, like Microsoft Teams, they use Slack, or they use Google Chat, or they use a text message to communicate internally. And we found out the secret to really good customer support that I guess won't be a secret anymore for a company at our stage is to actually provide support through Teams, through Slack. So we have all of our customers create a Teams channel with their dispatchers and our team. So whenever they have a question, we respond in literally minutes. Like yesterday, it was Saturday at 7:40 p.m. Eastern, and we got a question from a dispatcher in Florida, and we had it fully acknowledged in like 12 seconds. We had it resolved in 60 seconds, and it's just like a really high touch experience. And we're getting to the point where like right now we're still managing that. We're still responding in minutes, but that's the reason why people work with us. And so it is our responsibility, our obligation to maintain that. And as we've got all these onboards booked, we don't want that to be sacrificed. And so we are like aggressively actually hiring right now so we can keep the support side, the customer success side really tight. And that's just created like for me, I'm really stressed because like I've never been a recruiter per se before. Like I've been focused on customers and building
What
product.
were you doing before Probook, George?
I was in school. Like I literally, I feel like I'm like you a year ago. Like I'm a full-time recruiter. Like I've had to step away from the customer stuff a little bit because it's like our customers are our number one priority. But if we don't build a team more, like the customers are gonna be hurt. So we're super focused on building our customer success team and hiring the right people. Like we don't just want to hire. Like there's a lot of people we could hire, but I want to find the right person that's gonna take offense when there's a customer question that's gone unanswered and like we've dropped the ball, right? Like we want every stone unturned, and we want the most like inquisitive, proactive, like questioning people about customers and that are just truly customer obsessed, because customer obsession is exactly how we've got here to like in a long-winded way answer your original question.
I just want to like point out to everybody, I just want to a quick story of how I met George. So I actually met George about a year ago. Literally almost about a year ago.
Probably a year ago to
quite
like
around,
a week.
Literally it was at Home Service Freedom, I think is where we met. Or no, we met right before we got introduced.
No, it was Home Service
It
Freedom.
was Home Service Freedom when we met
November
in person.
2nd. Yeah.
But I think Josh Campbell, who's one of our mutual customers, Josh Campbell from Rescue Air, he told me this story. So Josh, super awesome. That's why I love this industry. There's so many entrepreneurs, so many early adopters. They kind of get what it takes to like build one like a business and scale it and grow it. And Josh Campbell from Rescue Air, right, one of our great customers. We launched with him in August, and he told me like, "Oh my God, you should meet this guy George." And I said, "Okay, who's that?" He's like, "He has this company called Probook." This is when you guys were in beta and you were kind of just like getting started. And Josh told me like, "Oh yeah, I met him. I think he met you at a conference or something." And then he came with you and your co-founder. You guys went to play chess with like some of the people outside in the streets in New Orleans or something. He's like, It's like there's these kids from Penn. They're super smart and. When I heard, I was like, oh, they're in Penn, and super smart. And then I met you at Home Service Freedom, and you said, and I was like, oh, dude, what's going on? I was like, why are you here late? Like, why did you come late? I think you came second day or something like that. And you were like, oh, I was taking a midterm because you were still in college. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, dude, you gotta be here, dude. You gotta like drop your test. And you, by the grace of God, you just graduated,
Barely.
It's not,
I actually failed a course because I went to visit Josh last April before I met you there.
Thank you, Josh, for ruining the American education, man. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. So yeah,
I miraculously was able to turn that one around. I wrote a separate final project on some of the private equity activity in the space, and miraculously my professor let me through there, but
good job.
Cut it real close. I'll say that.
Yeah. So I'm like, you are just like, what, this last May you graduated. Before May, George is like literally just at the Rilla office every week, and they're just like using the Rilla office to work, and they're just calling customers. And I'm like, George, aren't you supposed to be at school? And he's like, whatever. So you just finally graduated. So good job, and congratulations to your parents. You got your degree. You graduated from University of Pennsylvania. You're what, like 22 years old?
22, yeah.
Yeah, 22 years old, and you built one of the fastest growing businesses, in tech, like right now. And I want to kind of just stop here, kind of like a lesson to everybody, because one of the things that you're describing of how you're building, I mean, it resonates so much, so I'm so glad to have you here, kind of, making me, remember the good times, but one of the things that you're doing, which is so critical, is that you're doing two things. You're putting the customers first, and you're doing things, whatever it takes, things that don't scale for those customers. So doing things that don't scale. Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, always talks about doing things that don't scale. And that's like so important at the beginning, where people think like, oh my God, when you start a business, you have to think about all the scale that you're going to get into. You have to think about the processes. You have to think about, well, yes, you have to do that once you get to scale. But when you're getting started and you're really trying to build something 0 to 1, like you're literally trying to go against the laws of physics, you're trying to go against the laws of probability, you're trying to say, hey, I know that most businesses fail 99% of the time. Most new businesses fail, but I'm going to take a swing at it and try. When you're against all odds, building a new business that doesn't exist yet, scale is the least of your problems. I mean,
you would be lucky to have the luxury of thinking about scale.
Yes, like now you're in a position where like, oh my God, I need to think about hiring, because you put yourself in a position where you actually built something really great, like insanely great, that people are just like taking out of your hands. And it's like, and you've achieved product market fit, then now you can start thinking like, okay, what's the next level of scale? I need to hire people. But what you did is like, you said, no. I don't care about hiring. It's this very small team. I don't care about raising all this money, all this venture capital. I don't care about, like being in the media. I don't care about, I don't care about anything else. All I care about is my customers. I'm going to be as close to my customers as possible. Is it scalable that your customer support team is just you and your co-founders talking to your customers on Microsoft Teams? Of course it's not. But the fact that you're doing that allows you to be so insanely close to the customers, so insanely close to their problems, so insanely close to their experience with your product, that is the infinite returns that you're going to get from everything you're doing. There's like the story of Brian Chesky from Airbnb. When they started Airbnb, one of the things that they realized that they had to do differently than everybody else, because there was other, kind of sharing sites for lodging. There was other lodging sharing sites, like Craigslist was around. They were like, how do we become special? They realized that all the pictures that all these sites had were really janky pictures of people's apartments. And they said like, well, how can we get our hosts better pictures? Let's tell them to take better pictures. The hosts wouldn't do it. They don't know anything about photography, but they were designers. They knew a lot about photography and how to take great pictures. They're like, why don't we just go out and take pictures for our hosts, for our customers? And Brian Chesky and the Airbnb co-founders, their job was just to be camera people. And they would travel the country, mostly in New York City and other parts of the United States, and they would travel. And their job was to be like, hey, we need to take pictures because you're an Airbnb host. And they would travel, meet their customers face-to-face, spend so much time with them, and they would literally take pictures, put them on the Airbnb site. The pictures were beautiful. They started getting more booking. The host started getting more bookings on Airbnb than any other site. So they started flocking to Airbnb. That started generating the flywheel, the marketplace for Airbnb to start scaling. Of course, once Brian Chesky got to a certain scale where they literally didn't have time in the day to do anything else other than taking pictures, they had hundreds of hosts. They were like, okay, now they hired somebody to take the pictures. And then that person said, oh my God, I can't do it anymore. So they hired a team under them. And then they said, oh my God, we need to make this process more efficient. So they started building technology to manage those people. And by the time that they were like 100 million annual revenue company, that's when they just designed a technology where hosts could take pictures, and then they put some software to edit the pictures and make it more simple. But those level, and that's the concept of minimum viable scale. When you're starting a business, you want to do everything at the minimum viable scale that is appropriate for the stage that you are as a business. And what that allows you to do is it doesn't focus your attention on anything that's not super critical. Anything that's not critical falls to the wayside. And when you do that, not only are you focusing on the things that matter and letting everything else go, you're also increasing your chances of generating customer serendipity. And like Brian Chesky in the early days of Airbnb, he was visiting one of these hosts, take pictures. The host said, why don't you guys come on in and spend some time here? I've actually been hosting my apartment for 10 years. And so I'd love to share with you guys some insights as to what I've seen that works. And they were like, holy crap, yes. And they sat with him. He had a whole notebook of notes that he had taken over the years about how to be a great host.
I've heard this story, yeah.
And the founders of Airbnb took this this decades worth of knowledge from this host who just shared it with them. That critical information that helped them build Airbnb would have been impossible for them to gather on a phone call. Impossible. They had to be there in person, building this insane amount of rapport, building themselves the opportunity to be able to get that information. Can you imagine 10 years of learning? This guy's just giving it to you. That's why what you're doing is it's just so awesome, man, that you're literally just traveling, visiting customers. I try to do the same thing you're doing. It's that would be literally anytime I'm not doing that, traveling, visiting customers, I feel like, what am I doing? And you're getting to do that all the time. So I just want to say for everybody watching who's, we have a lot of sales leaders, a lot of founders of companies, they know, but anybody who's thinking of oh, maybe I go out and start my own business is damn, dude, this is what it takes, man. Not just an insane amount of hard work, but just an insane amount of focus on your customers and just letting everything else fall by the wayside. But that is so cool.
It's literally the only thing that matters to us is making a customer in Wisconsin happy.
Yeah.
Shout out Cardinal. And
Cardinal HVAC?
Yeah.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
yes. Chris Masterson.
Oh yeah.
He's a Rilla customer. Yes.
Oh yeah, we met them through you guys.
That's
but
awesome.
Anyway, when you go out and you go there in person, the amount of learning you get for the product is just tremendous. The strength of the relationship you make with your end users is unparalleled. It could not be better than you going and planting yourself there. And it's just made better customer outcomes. And like you said, I'm completely okay with this not being scalable in the long run. That's by design because we can control the inputs at the one customer level. If we go out there and we spend the time with the customer, we can make them successful. When you start thinking about let's build all these systems and do it all asynchronously and all this and that, we start to lose control on their outcome because we're not there. It's Stripe and the Collison going in there and actually just putting Stripe on their merchants' computers. And it's basically what we're doing as well. And we hold our customers' hands through the install. And it just really helps dispatchers get comfortable with it. And we've been able to address a problem that's difficult because dispatchers can be resistant to change. They can fear that Probook is coming after them. And so by going out there and really assuring them in person and working together, it just makes a world of difference. So it's something we're going to keep on doing. until we get to that point where we physically absolutely cannot do that anymore. But I've been to almost all of our customers in person.
How many customers have you visited today?
That are actual customers, I'd say like 40 that we've gone on site to. And we're not done yet.
It's like 4 and back. That's like 80 times you've hopped on a plane probably.
Oh, more than that. So we got conferences. I visited a couple of people that weren't even customers yet, and I just wanted to learn. Yeah. So we just I need to start a Hertz account so we could start getting points for our rentals, because we did like all of we've just onboarded like all of Fur, and like they're all over the East Coast. So we're just we put 1,800 miles in the rental car in like a week and a half.
Yeah, I saw you at where was it that I saw? Was it Aka? We were in Chicago, and I saw you and your co-founders, and you came in with Tyson from Avoca too, and you guys
AHR, yeah,
and you guys AHR, yeah, in Chicago, and you guys literally showed up in the TR Miller truck, and I'm like, George, did you stole the damn car? You steal the damn car? What are you doing? You guys showed up driving with the TR Miller truck. Like, what are you guys doing? So you're visiting customers a lot, and something that you said, actually, you think that with AI, people are always worried about replacement and job displacement and how AI is going to eliminate jobs and stuff like that. But even for a product like yours, which is like, lends itself very easily to the description of like, oh, you're just going to replace the dispatching role because the AI is just doing the dispatching. But even the way that you describe it is like, no. You still need the dispatcher because there's so many parts of their job that they still need to do. We're just taking one of the most complex, less human-friendly part of their jobs, and we're automating that side so that the dispatcher can focus all their attention. It's very similar. Like with Rilla, we never like been an AI tool that has seek to replace anybody or anything like that. But when we started, it was like we realized like, oh, the physical ride along has all these like annoying little things that you have to do in order to get the magic behind it. So the magic of the physical ride along is going out there, seeing a technician or a sales rep doing something wrong or doing something right, and then giving them feedback and helping them be better. And that's the magic. It's like the coaching. But then to get to the coaching and the feedback, you have to spend an hour driving in traffic to get to the appointment. In the appointment, you have to wait around for something interesting to happen, and you have to spend 2 hours there. And then after that, you have to drive back. And then in these 3 hours of ride-alongs, you have like this little bit of magic, which is where the human being was actually needed. And all we did with Rilla is like, hey, why don't we take the essence of this job that you're doing as a manager, of like doing this ride-along, doing this coaching, and why don't we keep the magic, and we let you do the human magic of the job, where you coach and you train and you see the feedback and you implement it and you make sure that they stay on the track. But we take out all the nuisance, and we take out all the heartache, and we take out all the all the annoying parts of the job. We take out the traffic. We take out the waiting around for something interesting to happen. We take out the driving back home when it's really late at night. We take out having to schedule the ride along. And you go out for like an hour drive and you get there and the customer rescheduled. So you have like wasted your time. You take out all the annoying parts so you could just do a virtual ride along in like 3 minutes, where you're focusing completely just on the thing that the human being does best, which is the coaching. And now the human being is able to do 100 times more ride alongs. It's not AI as a replacement mechanism. It's an AI as an enhancement of the human being. Like, you let the human being do what the human being does best. What have you seen from dispatchers that are using Probook who thought, oh, this is going to take my job, and now they're like, oh wow, I'm able to do my job more productively? What have you seen there?
Yeah. We've seen like a pretty wide range of experiences here. Like, we have a note, it's actually on our website. It's from one of our customers in Huntsville, Alabama, Blake Brothers, and their lead dispatcher, Andrea. She wrote a note and passed it to one of her managers that said, if you take Probook away, I'll quit. This is completely unsolicited. I didn't know about this note until a week after it was written, and we got a picture of it sent to us, and it was just really heartwarming to see that. And
why did she say that?
Because they were they had like a new dispatcher that they were trying to work with before they brought Probook on. And then Probook just helped that dispatcher train up so much faster. It took the guesswork out of her day. And Probook has been live at Blake Brothers for 5 months now, and she's still here. Everyone else is still there. And they're, the Tetris is being handled, and they're focused on the customer experience. So dispatchers have this really strong skill set of being able to be the liaison between the technician and the homeowner.
Yes.
And that's incredibly powerful, and not something that Gen AI is going to magically, finesse is so important, and that oversight is so important. And we're just freeing up dispatchers to do more of that. It's like the Tetris, the matching of technicians to jobs. That's so intensive to do when jobs are coming in constantly. And then you have customers that are upset because there's just so many calls. It's hard to like pick up the phone and get to everyone. So it helps dispatchers, if they're using Probook correctly, just be less stressed overall because they're spending time on the customers. They're managing the exceptions rather than like doing the Tetris. And the Tetris, like if you talk to any dispatcher on a day when you're absolutely slammed, like mid-January, I think it was January 15th this past year, super like Arctic freeze all over the Northeast, the Midwest. It was like minus 15 in Nebraska. We got a foot of snow in upstate New York. Chicagoland also got a good amount of snow, really cold temps. And one of our customers, TR Miller, was using Probook, and like it was their record day for call volume. The amount of like no heat calls they had on the board was just ridiculous. And it was like actually a pretty tame day from a dispatcher standpoint. And those days would literally make you pull your hair out because you're just like nonstop glued to the dispatch board. You're not taking breaks. You're not doing anything else. You're not getting to every customer because you were just like, that board is messy and there are so many jobs to get through. So, you know, when you're really busy, dispatchers can really appreciate the load off of their shoulders. Summer, it's really great to see that. And otherwise, it just primes you to focus more on the service piece. And now something Probook will do is also manage like the customer experience as well to some degree by texting customers updates. So now you don't have to copy and paste the same message to your customers over and over again that says, "Hi, Mrs. Smith, you're still in the schedule. Your technician's finishing up other calls. Will reach out when they're on the way." Like Probook will do that for you. That's the other thing, that you could be like a otherwise resistant to Probook dispatcher, and then Probook will automate the customer updates, and you're like, gee, like thanks for doing that. Like that saved me a lot of time, right? And on top of that, when you throw the in-person experience of us coming out there and meeting you and shaking your hand and shadowing you for 2 days, being available at your beck and call over Teams, we're just really, really focused on the dispatcher and building their trust.
You made another interesting point, which is, so we're talking about AI doesn't replace, it just enhances the human being. But when it comes to the point of like whether AI displaces jobs, I think you're describing something that in practice is actually quite the opposite. It's not only that it doesn't displace jobs, it actually is that it creates more jobs. Like literally what you just described. TR Miller had their record day of bookings in terms of calls. And when otherwise they would not have been able to book that many calls because the dispatchers, you simply cannot handle that many customers and that many matching. Like the game of Tetris gets too overwhelming, and then Tetris is literally designed so that somebody loses at some point, right? So it's like you have to lose at some point, and the Tetris gets too much unless you have.
I've never played Tetris myself, but
yeah, no, Tetris you have to lose at Tetris. Like there's one guy who like the news would like. He made the news because he finally broke Tetris. Like he was the only guy who got to the point where Tetris, like the code there was not any more code to run because he just kept winning and winning and winning. And it was like an insane record. Like Tetris is designed to make you lose at a point. Like it becomes impossible. And so like your analogy is actually quite correct. It's at some point it becomes impossible. But you like literally talked about how now they're able to get more calls, which means more revenue for the business, which means if you got more revenue for the business, you can actually grow and hire more people.
Yeah, exactly. Like their average route was like 30 minutes per call between jobs, meaning job A to job B on average would be 30 minutes of driving. And on that day, with Probook, because Probook will also think about driving time, but only, and actually you mentioned this in the beginning of the pod, and I hadn't brought it up, but it's actually a really like fascinating one, which is this concept of opportunity cost. Mm-hmm. It's easy to be greedy and say this technician is the best fit for this one call without considering like the global consequences of sending that tech there and that tech now not running other calls that might be less good for that technician, but overall better for the company, right? And that opportunity cost when you're over capacity is incredible. Like their average drive was like 17 or 18 minutes, and they literally ran like more than 10% more calls than they would have otherwise ran. I think it was actually like they eclipsed their record by 20% on that day, because were able to pack the right calls really tightly. Like they're number one technician for selling. They're like number 1, 2, and 3 techs, but they're one of their, like, I think they're number 2 tech. We got them to 8 calls, and they don't usually run 8 calls a day. They're next star. They follow the process. Don't attack me for this, but it was just like they had so many calls. They had to get bodies in the homes, and they
ran 8 calls a day.
And this tech ran 8 calls, and they were all aged opportunities. Like every single one of them was over 10 years old. And that's really important. If you're not familiar with this concept of like aged opportunities, when you're dispatching for profit in HVAC in particular, your older equipment is where your money's at. That's where you're going to turn a system over into a replacement. You're not going to make as much on a 3-year-old unit that's got, something that's probably under warranty anyway. That's not going to actually net the company very much. So you want to match your best selling technicians to the oldest equipment. And we got there like number 2 tech to 8 calls that were all aged. His total route was an hour and a half for 8 calls. So his route was like 11 and change minutes per call. And like, that's just beautiful. That's literally describing the surplus you talked about of it's like more expanding the pie for the company.
So, which allows you to generate more jobs.
More jobs, yeah.
And the other way that you mentioned is
more jobs ran, more customers served, and then more for the company to actually like spend on growth initiatives.
More employment for people.
Yeah, exactly.
They're and the other thing that you described is like, because of this system that allows you, not only do you get more employment, more jobs, like literally hiring more people from the top end, that you're making more revenue and you're growing more because you became more effective and more efficient as a business. You also you're able to hire more people because the barrier to entry becomes lower. Like you mentioned this dispatcher who was new, and she was able to ramp so quickly and learn the stuff so quickly that now you can actually retain more employees. And the same thing, it was Aaron Levy, the CEO of Box.com, which is a multi-billion-dollar startup. And he talked about this where, people think that sales, there's all these automated SDRs out there. SDRs is sales development representatives, like the people who call you on the phone to try to sell you technology. And he said, with these automated SDRs, people are talking about the end of salespeople as we know it. Like, we're not going to have salespeople that are human beings. We're going to have automated robots selling you online. And he said, I don't think that's the case, because if you actually look at the sales role, what's going to happen is the AI SDRs, like the AI sales development representatives that cold call you to book a demo with an actual salesperson on the call, on a Zoom call, they will book more meetings. And because they book more meetings, you will actually have to hire more human salespeople to take those meetings.
Right.
and you see this all over again. It's like it's not displacing jobs, it's allowing companies to generate more jobs for their business because they are becoming more effective. And by becoming more effective, you can grow, and you can kind of grow into new markets. Why is a 22-year-old almost dropout from University of Pennsylvania focusing on building an AI dispatching tool for the trades?
There's a lot of backstory there. So back in elementary school, I used to sell these things called silly bands. You know what silly bands are? The little things you...
No idea.
Cut the silly band part. So I used to collect coins, right? And in elementary school, I think everyone here knows what a coin is. Not cryptocurrency, like physical change. I used to go to the bank with my dad, and I would get a roll of pennies for 50 cents, 50 pennies, and I would search them for wheat cents. Wheat pennies or wheat cents are any cents made before 1958. And I would take all of these pennies. They had a different design. They had wheat ears on the back. And I'd go to school in elementary school. This was like 3rd grade. And I would sell the wheat pennies for $1 a piece. Then I'd put a regular penny that I found on the street back in the roll and get my 50 cents back from the bank. So I started exchanging pennies that I got at face value and selling them to my friends in school. And then I started collecting coins, and I got pretty obsessed with coins. Like Will and I were joking earlier, in 1877, they made 852,500 Indian head cents. 852,000 of them were business strikes. The other 500 were proofs. And at the lowest end, they're $700 coins. And then there's other coins that have sold north of $10 million. The coin industry is nuts. I bought and sold and collected coins for 10 years of my life at this point. But I had done that. I sold and collected stamps for a while. I did paper money. I also collected vinyl records more recently, so I ran one of the largest Facebook groups for selling records, and I've sold thousands of good records over the past couple of years. And so I've always been I've always been selling. items,
Yeah.
like physical items. And then in high school, I used to pressure wash houses, like actual power washing. It was just my dad and I. We're from upstate New York in a town called Newburgh. And we covered it's like an hour and a half from here north. And we covered 6 counties. We'd get our first job in, say, like Yorktown, which is near where Will's from in Westchester. And then we'd get our next call for a quote, and it would be in Poughkeepsie. And Poughkeepsie is like an hour north of there. And because power washing is like super competitive, we'd have to drop what we were doing and go up to Poughkeepsie and quote that customer. Because if we didn't give them an estimate, they would just go to someone else. So it was like a race to each job. And we'd end up just zigzagging all over the geography, driving like 3 hours a day. Like literally 3 hours a day of windshield time was not uncommon. And I did that all of high school, first 2 years of Penn. And then I got to Penn and I was studying systems engineering. And I thought, like, what if I could build some software? This is after I tried another startup that failed for a bunch of reasons. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought, what if I could build some software?
Thank you for adding that, by the way.
Very easy to do that. I think it's a rite of passage. You have to do that.
Thank you for adding that failed startup.
You have to build something that no one wants until you learn the importance of building.
I never
stuff
tell
that
people about the
wants.
failed startup. I always go into so thank you for doing. I also had a failed startup, but I skipped that one. I was like, let's go into that.
It's worth talking about. But anyway, not now. I thought, what if I could build some software to cut driving time down at a business like my own pressure washing business? Because I learned from my past failure that you've got to build something that you can touch your user. You can figure out who would actually benefit from this. And I started like shopping the vision around, like forget product, just like a vision for this driving time reducing software.
Yeah.
But power washing is what we call Chuck in a truck, Dan in a van. Like we were very small. There's no Tommy Mello of power washing, at least in my area. Maybe in maybe in somewhere else in the country there is, but not in upstate.
I think there's one Rilla customer who might be washing who's like, yeah, son, you got to talk to me. I'm the Tommy Mello.
There's a Tommy Mello of power washing somewhere in the South, I'm sure, but not where I'm from.
Yeah.
Right? We're seasonal. We worked April to September, and that was pretty much it. So we weren't going to be able to sell software to cash businesses, right? Because it just wasn't going to sustain a business that could be sustainable in this day and age. So we pivoted to painting, and we met the largest independent painting company in the Northeast. They're called Nolan Painting. They're out of Havertown, Pennsylvania, about 15 minutes west of where I went to school in Penn. And we built a scheduling tool for their estimators. And estimators are kind of like the salespeople that Rilla would serve in an HVAC company.
Yeah.
And we built a scheduling tool to basically route their estimates close together. Let's say one of their estimators was in Downingtown and on next Thursday, and a call came in from Downingtown. They'd say, hey, look, we've got someone here. Let's schedule it right across the street. But the problem was this company was the largest franchise, non-Certa Pro painting company in the Northeast, or one of them. And they had 6 estimators. So it wasn't going to be very attractive for us. We couldn't create enough value to warrant a business because we're going to go after the largest and there's only 6 users. It's not enough to sustain a business. So we left painting, went into home service, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, because we're doing a lot of discovery at that point. And I cold called every business in the Philly area. And I got a couple of on-sites, one of whom that let us graciously on site as a customer of ours today, Bolden Brothers. Shout out to them. And the Bolden Brothers story is actually...
Are they Rilla customers, Will? They're Rilla, yes! Rilla customers!
Yeah, exactly. So shout out to Tim and Sam and Gabe and Walt for trusting us. But we were still, I think I was a sophomore at that time. We had nothing. And we went over there. This is December of 22 now. We went over there and we were like, hey, we just left painting. We're ready to do this. And we came on site. We saw their dispatch process and they were kind of like, afterward, we hadn't asked. We're like, hey, we don't have a product yet, but we'd love to partner and build one. And they're kind of like, pretty much no. And then a year later, I reached back out to them and they joined our beta, and then we got back. But anyway, we tried meeting design partners locally and it didn't work at all. We visited a few shops in the Philly-ish area, Delaware, but nothing came of it. Then we went to ACA, where you were talking about Josh earlier. And we met, actually before Josh, we met these T.R. Miller from Plainfield, Illinois. And we were standing outside of the convention hall waiting for the show to start. And there was these 2 guys, pretty young. I think Mark's 30, Brian's 35, 36. And they were just standing there and they had blue polos that said T.R. Miller. And I didn't know who T.R. Miller even was, but I was like, let's go talk to these guys. And we just struck up a conversation. there was nothing for us to sell them. Like we didn't have a product. This was like last April. This was purely like doing discovery. And we just asked like, hey, what do you guys do? And they're like, heating and air. And I'm like, oh, cool. And they asked what we did. And we're like, so we're building this like AI, this automated dispatch.
We're studying math in college.
Pretty much. And Brian and Mark somehow took an interest in us. And we ended up talking more and more. And we hung out at ACA. Bourbon Street was involved. We went to dinner with them. And we just started a friendship. And at the end of the show, Jim, who's Brian's brother and general manager, actually was like, you guys got to come out and check out our operation. And we were like, our jaws dropped to the floor. Like we had to like beg to get anyone to let us come on site. Yeah. Now we're like being invited on site. We didn't have a product yet. And I wasn't sure quite like what Brian and Jim were believing in. We went on site. That's where I almost failed that class because I went to Brian and Jim, and then I went to Rescue Air. Well, we learned, actually, we're trying to solve a different problem. We're trying to solve the scheduling problem that we solved for the painting company, but we just got like just enough knowledge to be dangerous. And we like had this vision for something we were going to build. And then Brian actually and I were discussing like, what if I came out there and like spent the summer with them to learn how to dispatch? So I went and actually like did dispatching at TR for over a month last year while all my friends were doing their internships and stuff like that. And I got a lot of insight into like what goes into sending texts to the right calls. Like you've got batting orders, people measure conversion rate, average ticket, and then there's so much more nuance like tech generated leads. And there's some companies that'll measure like turnover percentage of all the service calls that are opportunities to be turned over. What percent of the time does a tech create a tech generated lead? And I realized like, hang on a second, that metric's also problematic because what if you have a tech that generates a ton of leads and the comfort advisor gets to the home and the homeowner's like, man, I didn't really want you here. It was kind of forced in them. So not only do you have to track tech generated lead percentage, but also TGL dollars, like whose leads are actually high quality and ultimately close rather than who just sets leads to collect their $25 spiff and not actually creating value for the homeowner there. So there was so much nuance and so much insight into like how dispatching gets done that I learned being immersed in TR Miller, immersed in Rescue Air. And to this day, we owe the world to Brian and Jim and their team. Like I know most of their technicians. I know like their whole office. And we wouldn't have gotten to where we were without like a couple of people that believed in us and like let us just immerse ourselves in the business. And I think that's where our customer obsession was born from, because like we wouldn't have gotten there without them. They're the ones that use Teams that gave us the idea of like, let's provide our customer support through Teams. And I was telling Will this other story earlier about like, and why have we kept going? Like that's a great origin story. But I remember there's these 4 companies. I'm from Newburgh, New York. It's about an hour and a half from here, I think I mentioned. There's 4 companies that I knew before I started Probook. Like as a kid, I've seen JSP, which is JSP Home Services, A-Star, Jones Services. Like there was a technician from Jones that lived on my street. Like I've seen the Jones truck growing up, right? On this other company, T. Weber, that's right across the river. And I've seen all of their trucks as a kid. And now, as of like October, if I go back home and I'm like driving somewhere around my house and I see one of their trucks, there's like an 87% chance that truck is there because of a decision that Probook made, because now they all use Probook. And that's like incredibly fulfilling to me to see companies that like I used to see growing up now having an impact made in a variety of different areas. And so ever since I was like, the coins and the stamps got me into entrepreneurship, the pressure washing got me in love with the trades, and then building the relationship with the TR Millers, the Rescue Airs, got me really hooked on serving the trades and seeing the fulfillment through and through. So that's why we're super long and super deeply vertical on software for the trades.
I wanna just double click on 3 things. So 1, obsession. 2, finding the right market at the right time and doing the job yourself. So obsession. This is a common trope with like founder types, that they are highly, highly obsessive creatures and they just get obsessed. I'm actually reading the biography of Edwin Land, who was the founder and CEO of Polaroid. Polaroid is the camera. You take a picture, it just comes out
yeah.
with like but Polaroid was actually, now that I learned, it's like a company that was making way many more things than cameras. Like the guy who actually dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, he was wearing Polaroid sunglasses, because they were the first. But anyways, this guy, Edwin Land, super great founder of the company. He was one of the richest guys in America. Steve Jobs used to idolize him. So Steve Jobs modeled a lot of his career and his vision for Apple around Edwin Land. He was one of his heroes. And there was like a quote out there, I don't know who said that, but it's like when your heroes are your heroes. And so I'm reading about Edwin Land, and he was, for whatever reason, he became obsessed with lights and being able to block out light at the time when he was growing up in the 1930s, 1940s, and it was 1930s or 1920s, 1930s or whatever it was. And there was a big problem when you would drive, like you would see the glare of the light from the other car, and because the windshields didn't have the blocking, the Polaroid that blocks the light, and people would talk about that problem. And when he was like 10 years old or something like that, he became obsessed about that problem, and literally he went to college and was just working on that problem. He dropped out of I think it was like Princeton or MIT. He dropped out because he was just obsessed about doing research on how to block the light and how to make these things work. And and you just see that literally from very early on, there's a very obsessive people, and it's just
dropping out wasn't glamorized back then either.
No. He
that
was just
not in.
No,
yeah.
and it was for him. It was very matter of fact. He was talking to his friend, and they were working together on this Polaroid thing, and they were almost graduating, kind of like you. It was the last semester, and be like, so you want to get the education without the degree? And they're like, yeah, it makes sense to me. I don't think it makes sense to be here. We should just work on the on the Polaroid thing. And so you see these people are highly obsessive. This guy, from the moment he was literally when he was a kid, he's just a highly obsessive person. It's just I think that for founders, it's just you just have to find something to channel that obsession, because otherwise it becomes so crazy. So it was coins for you, and then the power washing, and then now a technology company with highly obsessive
records.
people.
Let me tell you, when I was doing records through COVID, I would work 18 hours a day. I'd go to the flea market I'd leave my house at 3 a.m, drive an hour and change to Connecticut. I would look through every record I could see there, and then I'd go to a record show, then I'd go to a record shop, and then I would get the rest of the afternoon taking photos, and then I'd be on Facebook and eBay listing them until midnight, 1 a.m, and I would rinse and repeat. And it was just pure obsession is all I could say.
Yeah. So when people say customer obsessed, what they mean is they have a founder type like you, who's an insane person. By the way, obsession is a pathology. Obsession is a disease. Obsessive compulsive disorder. But so you try to channel this disease.
It's not rational.
It's not 18 hours a day. So anyways, a lot of the highly productive people in humanity are like this. They have this obsessive quality to them. And then so that's just one thing to double click on. It's highly obsessive, and you try to channel now this obsession to your customers, which is just super, super crucial. The second thing is, you mentioned having to, when you were pivoting at the beginning, it's you do the power washing, it didn't make sense. Then you do the painting, it didn't make sense. Then you go into finding home services, and then the idea is changing.
Yeah, it was HVAC scheduling before
HVAC
dispatching. There was another pivot. Yeah.
So there's a lot of pivots there, but a lot of the pivots had nothing to do with the core product. A lot of the pivots had to do with the core market.
Yeah.
And that is so important. That is so important for people that are looking to start businesses, not only in technology, but any business. There is this thing that's called product market fit. When you are building something that doesn't exist yet into the world, whether it's a new piece of art, whether it's a new piece of software, or whether it's a new piece of business, of a service that doesn't exist yet in the world, and you're trying to invent this new thing, people, mistakenly think that the product is what you need to focus on at the beginning. But what matters so much more is the market, right? It's the market, because product market fit, it's a supply and demand equation. And without the demand, without the market, there is nothing. And there's an old saying that, a VC said, if you have a great team with a great product and a shitty market, the market wins. And it pulls the great team and the great product down to the shit. But if you have a great, crappy team with a crappy product, with a great market, the market wins, and it pulls the crappy team and it pulls the crappy product up with the market, right? You can probably
the market's pretty strong force there.
The market pulls everything. The market wins. The market does not get beat. The market wins everything, because that's true customer demand. And when you were getting started, and it's very similar to Rilla, Rilla, we started trying to sell. People think like it wasn't in the trades. Rilla's trying to sell to field marketing people, the Red Bulls and the Heinekens, like the people who you go out in college campuses, they have uniforms, they hand you a Red Bull. And our idea was we're going to capture conversational insights to give these big brands consumer insights from the real life interactions from their consumers. Didn't work because field marketeers, they don't really value the data that much. It's like an ancillary problem. It's all market related problem. So we said, let's go to retail where maybe the conversations are a little bit more valuable. And retail didn't work because the margins in retail are very low and the AI product is a very expensive product on the margins. And so you have to go to a higher margin industry with a higher ticket where the conversation actually matters way more. And then we started going to field sales, and from field sales, we started finding other constraints until eventually we tried like 27 different market verticals before we spent 3 years literally just people think
trying everything,
trying all the little market verticals, but understanding like, oh, this one didn't work, so let's find a market that solves that constraint, and then we find another one and another one.
What was the most like promising one that didn't work?
There's
outside of the ones you said, what was the one that you thought you felt really good about?
All of them. I thought I was like, this is the one. I was like, this is every single one. I was like, this is it. And then I would do it. It would solve the previous problem, but then I would be like, oh, there's a new problem.
Yeah.
And so all of them. So my point being, when you're starting something new, and this applies to home service entrepreneurs as well, is that the market matters so much. It matters so much. You think about Tommy Mello, like selling garage doors. When you're getting started, you have to find your niche. You have to find those customers that absolutely adore what it is that you are selling or what it is that you're trying to envision. And if you don't find that early set of customers that absolutely love whatever before it's even built, then you haven't found the right market. You haven't. And so that is so important. Like just pivoting your way to find the right market at the right time. Amazon did that. There's a reason why people know what Amazon is and they don't know what the hell Webvan is, because when Webvan, you don't know what Webvan is.
No.
So Webvan was a company just like Amazon in the 1990s. They were selling things online. They were a .com company, Webvan.com and Amazon.com. They were both doing the exact same thing, selling things online. But Webvan, they sold food and Amazon sold books. And so Amazon was selling to the market of book readers, and Webvan was selling to a market of people who wanted to get their groceries online in the 1990s. Books, much easier market for the internet at the time. You don't have to worry about cold. You don't have to worry about the logistics of shipping for perishables. You don't have to worry about the most price-sensitive market ever, which is the grocery market. You don't have to worry about the most time-sensitive market ever, which is the grocery market. And then the Webvan people, they had to worry about all these things back in the 1990s when the internet was not as developed, was not as fast, was not
distractions.
Yeah. It was just like so many bad things about that market at the wrong time. Now, Instacart and all these things doing groceries, now it's a better time. It's a better market for groceries online because you have iPhones, you have location data. You can actually create a marketplace of people in high density cities.
Right.
It's a better time, better market. But the market actually made Amazon the company that it is today, that they went after books first, because the books were the best product you could sell on the internet. So the same thing, when you find an insanely high growth company, there is something that they did to find the right market of people. And I'm thinking of home improvement. I'm thinking like Groundworks, like, Leaf Home, like the people who invented the leaf filter, like all these different products and services. Always the right market at the right time for the right product. And that's what makes and breaks the company. Third, doing the job. Your story of like literally, and this is so important for people who, and the people who've started their own businesses kind of resonate with this. It's like doing the job yourself before automating it or building a product for it. That is such an important thing to building a business. It's like knowing what problems you're solving. Like that's the best thing that you could get. The second best thing is like talking to a customer and trying to get them to tell you about their problems. The other thing is literally experiencing the problems yourself.
Doing it, yeah.
And doing it. The fact that you went out of your way to literally be a dispatcher so that you would know exactly, because not only did it give you like the insight to understand what the problems were, it gave you the vision like, holy crap, there's a problem here with this game of Tetris, because you played the game of Tetris yourself.
I tried playing the game of Tetris. I remember before I even met T.R. Miller, I was saying to myself, I was like, I think I should go become a dispatcher this summer. Like that was literally my goal. I spoke to a couple of other companies and I actually like kind of got an offer to do it paid. Like someone was like, look, we could use some help as a dispatcher. It'll be, I forget how much it paid an hour, like come do it. And there's no better way to absorb a problem than to like just do it and try to solve it yourself and see like all the tooling that's available. So I almost went and actually worked at a company that used Successware. And I almost went and learned how to dispatch for them.
That's so cool.
So 100%, like I get asked this like occasionally from like people that are thinking about being founders. It's like, how do you get to this point of having something that people want? And it's like, you just have to immerse yourself in a bunch of spaces to figure out where the large enough pain is to support a software business. And it's 100% just doing the thing that you're trying to address. It's like going back to the Brian Chesky story in Airbnb. It's like, there's no better way to get that initial customer obsession than going and doing the thing that doesn't scale.
Yeah,
I think it's literally the same type of class of thing of doing things that don't scale. It's like,
well, no, Airbnb started because Brian Chesky, it was called Air Bed and Breakfast because Brian Chesky and his co-founders tried to sell their apartment for rent.
Yep.
When there was that's how they saw the vision. They were like, holy crap, we could actually do this as a business because they did it themselves.
Exactly.
The same thing. And like to me at Rilla, one of the best things that ever happened to us is that we actually hired a sales team and I started coaching people with our own product. And when I started using our own product to actually coach, like our NPS went from, it was like high already. It was like in the 40, 50 range. Our NPS went from 50 to like, or 40 to 50 to like 70 to 80, depending on the month. It's like literally doubled our NPS almost because I'm using the product. And anytime I'm using the product, as a coach, I'm coaching salespeople.
Right.
Our customers are coaches. Now I'm the first person who literally I go tap my engineer and be like, this crap is not working. Can you please fix it because of this and this and that?
You're trying to use it and you're finding like a very real bottleneck that you just can't do anything about.
And then the other thing it does is like, to me, our product development roadmap is just me using the product and seeing like what's annoying about this or what thing would I love to do with this product that I can't do because it's not built yet. And that literally lets me see the vision. I want to just point out that like your story is like very similar. There's a guy, I don't remember what his name is. And I read about him through a business article, but I think is one of the most fascinating founder stories ever, which it's this guy, he's the founder of Dodo Pizza. You know Dodo Pizza?
I don't.
It's nobody in America knows this because the guy's a Russian guy, or at least his company was founded in Russia. I don't know if he's Russian himself, but it's like one of the biggest and fastest growing pizza chains around the world. Nobody knows this because it's like in Asia, it started in Russia, it's like now in China, it's like it's a completely different side of the world, and nobody knows this. And the guy he was a business like founder type. He failed a few startups as part for the course, right? And he just became obsessed with pizza, right? It's just for, whatever reason, his obsession led him to pizza.
Why not?
And I don't know how many years it was that he spent, but before starting his own pizza chain, like Dodo Pizza, he had this vision of like a tech-enabled pizza shop where everything was going to be like super efficient and super tech forward, where you were going to measure everything with cameras and like things were going to, like the pizza store of the future, right? And before he founded the thing, what did he do? He got a job at Domino's Pizza. And he went to work at Domino's Pizza for years. He literally was working there, not just to work there, but to learn everything about what it takes to actually run a pizza shop. And he did the job, every single job. He got promoted to general manager. He understood exactly where Domino's got their suppliers from, for their tomatoes, for their wheat, for their dough, like everything. Like he just knew everything for years. He literally took a master's in business administration of how to run a pizza shop because he learned from Domino's.
Brilliant.
And he did that for years. And then he started Dodo Pizza. He was starting with such a leg up because he knew everything about how to run. And now he was adding the little bit of innovation that he wanted to add. And he grew the thing to a point that Domino's tried to acquire him. and so it's like such a leg up when the founder has done the job, man. That is such a leg up. So that's kudos, man, to you for doing that. Because I don't imagine you did it because you actually wanted the money to work in the summer. You probably did it with that intent of like actually understanding what the hell was going on.
Oh yeah, it was for learning and for relationship building 100%. Like, how am I supposed to be an authority on something I haven't done?
Yeah.
That's just not like, you've got to do it if you're going to automate it. So 100%, I wouldn't have done it any other way. And, if I'm very long in the trades, but should I ever, found something again in the future, I will want to have done the job. Like that is a very good framework for, for building.
It's me having done it without me doing the job before, and now doing it with me, like doing the job that I'm, like my product is serving. it's like I can't go back because it's
Night
like
and
such
day, night and day.
you're so in the dark with
Really.
because you're
And
relying
even
on
after-
secondhand feedback.
Even after you do the job, you're still in the dark. Like
Yes.
at least in my case, like I did the job, but I still had another year of learning ahead of me.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
even the job wasn't enough. It was good, but it wasn't enough.
My story. We had Shelby on the podcast from Conduit. She graduated from Stanford. You graduated from University of Pennsylvania. We're gonna have Tyson from Avoca AI on the podcast, and that's just a few of. There are so many people, so many young, hungry, super talented and super intelligent founders, tech founders that are building products that are native to the trades. You are 100% focused on the trades. Rilla is, I guess, 96% focused on the trade. We have a few customers outside of the trades, but 96%. Why is this happening now? This didn't happen before, from what I've noticed. Before, there wasn't that many startups like native to the trades. I mean, Service Titan, that was, they came in like, I would say, 2008, 2010, and that was their thing. They like we are the software for the trades, and they were kind of like the vertical software for the trades. But now it's like this insane explosion of technology and talent that's pouring into this industry. I'm a part of it. You're a part of it. We both found our way to Rome through different ways. Why do you think this is happening, and why is it happening now? That so many talented young founders, a profile like you would typically be going to Y Combinator to build for other tech people, build some sort of go work at Google or something like that and build something for them. Why are we here, George, building for the trades?
It's an interesting question because like my motivation for being here is probably different from everyone else's motivation for being here, which is like, again, I was in the trades myself.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a key difference because I had exposure to like, not before I even dispatched, like the pressure washing. I did that for 6 years. But I think the trades, like for entrepreneurs more in general, were previously like, I would say shunned for not providing for scalable distribution. I think like the leading thing that I used to like hear when I would like tell people I was thinking about building for the trades, and like we're fully bootstrapped, we haven't raised a dime, but like back when I was in school, there was a lot of these like pitch coaches and all these competitions and stuff. And it would be, we would talk and everyone's feedback was like, the trades are too fragmented. But I think the rise of like two things in the trades that people outside of the trades don't necessarily have context on is one, the private equity consolidation. And I'm not going to get into the politics of that because everyone has a different opinion there. But from the very fact of the matter, in HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and a lot of other trades as well, consolidation has happened, and it's happened pretty aggressively. So now there's these groups that own, conglomerates of companies, and it's become more scalable to distribute technology in the trades because you can work with private equity platforms that if your product is truly creating value and is like a necessary part of their workflow, there's virality just contained in that very structure. But the second piece is also like the trades and the best practices groups that are just like available and have really strong network effects, not in the traditional sense, but just like a real strong notion of virality. And it's just becoming trendy now to work with those folks. Like we're both partnered with Nexstar, and like we wouldn't be here without a group like Nexstar that has built really positive like energy around innovating in the trade. So I'd say like part of it is external, like a lot of interest, a lot of buzz around the trades through consolidation and stuff like that. And I'd say part of it is also internal to the trades and best practices groups and such, like really just wanting to be better and turn tradespeople into really strong business people. And to do that, it's processes, it's software. It's different from like our sake when we don't talk about processes because we're going to 0 to 1. These companies are already at scale and they have thousands of customers, so they need processes, right? And I think there's just like an internal push to be more process oriented. So I think the two of those phenomenon kind of coinciding has made it very intriguing. But I'm happy we've been here. I've had the idea for more than 2.5 years now. I'm happy we're in this for the long run. We've done a lot of our learning. There's still a ton of learning ahead of us. And I'm just like, could not be more jazzed about working here in the trades.
It's funny because when you talk about the private equity consolidation, and a lot of your customers are actually, private equity customers. And a lot of our customers are private equity customers, and a lot of Tyson's customers, and a lot of Shelby's customers. And it's interesting because it's like we're all like kind of like point solutions that do one thing really, 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 really well. And that's all. Like you do dispatching. That's
all we do.
And you want to really do dispatching well, and all your energy is like spread into that one singular point of focus, which is super important. The industry is changing with this money. How do you think it affects startups like us in terms of how we build and how technology, like how do you think it affects technology moving forward, given that you have these new types of buyers that seem, for whatever reason, they seem to enjoy the point solution? And why is it? Why is it that they enjoy the point solution?
Well, I think there's a strong tailwind here that's like positive for technology. It's positive for the industry. It's positive for these consolidators, partners, customers. Like I think this is like net surplus creating. And the reason I say that is like it's catalyzed the change. It's like when you've got a certain scale, and going into your second question, like why the point solutions, it's like you've got 12 companies and 30 technicians each and 360 technicians. And with that 360 technicians, that's 360 techs that need dispatching. And then it's 360 technicians that need sales coaching. And then that's 360 times however many inbound calls you get per customer that need an Avoca, right? There's so much like value being passed through these businesses. And when you have a point solution, and that point solution is led by a team that all they do 18 hours a day is that point solution. Sometimes it's more than 18 hours a day. I'm sure we've both done that many, many days. From my point of view, our perspective, these different types of buyers are interested in someone that is dedicated and specialized and has the most insight in the world on this area. And there's a lot of value for them going in and picking the best at that area because they're trying to be the best platform. Yeah. And they've got so many moving pieces. So I guess it's twofold. It's like, one, there's so much scale that you have to do something about these problems, and relying on like manual, less than data-driven processes is literally expensive. You're like leaving a lot of money on the table. And two, the point solutions are like, this is all we do. And it's very obvious that we have insights that are incredibly deep, and that we also have an element of being able to move quickly and accommodate like a given platform's specific wants, that it's a very clear compounding value proposition that you want to work with the experts. So that's what I would say.
I think it's also like the fact that there are so many startups like us actively going out for the trades.
Yeah, there's like natural competition. It's like there's literally like you guys especially, like there's so much in the space now going towards that. Like the market is naturally gonna put pressure on companies to be the best.
Yeah. It's like
you don't have choice but to be the best.
It's like now I remember Ara, CEO founder of ServiceTitan, he was at Praxis with Terry Nicholson, and he was speaking on stage. I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of, before when Vahe and I, he said, started ServiceTitan, we felt that our mission was to bring the industry up to speed with all the technology that had, like with the internet, with the cloud, with all the technology had already been built in other industries. You just really bring the industry up to speed, to bring the trades up to speed. And Ara said then, he said, and now with all these advancements in AI and all these things that are happening with the consolidation, with the private equity, the interest in the space, the money that's going in, the talent that's coming in the space, he said, I feel like we at ServiceTitan are playing catch up because there's so much that's moving. That it's like so fast and it's so difficult to keep up. And I think that part of that is like all this talent, that's coming in. It's forcing contractors to be on the early adopter side of the technology adoption curve. And when you're in the early adopter side, the mentality is not, oh, let me just get the technology that does the job, period. No, when you're in the early adopter side, you have to say, hey, let me get the best possible technology that might create the most outsized returns for my business, because if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. And if they do it and I don't do it, then I'm going to be like 10 times, 20 times behind. The analogy that I give is like, imagine if you're in the early adopter space for SEO marketing. Like you're one of the early adopters of SEO marketing technology, and you're trying to build a playbook to be discovered on Google, and like you're really one of the early adopters. Like maybe in the early to mid 2000s, you're like really trying to work out your SEO strategy. And then Bing comes out, right? From Microsoft, Bing comes out, and you have a buddy that tells you like, hey, listen, man, I know Google's all great and stuff like that, but my friend, he's got this. There's this new thing that came out called Bing, and the prices for ads are cheaper there, so we should just probably use Bing and develop. Imagine if you had been the contractor or the business that had developed the SEO strategy for Bing and not on Google. You probably wouldn't be in business, right? Because when the technology's early enough, most of the value in that technology hasn't been produced yet.
Right.
It hasn't been produced.
And you have to stay ahead of the curve. And I would agree with what you said very strongly. And it's a recent phenomenon too. Like when we went to ACA last April and you said, hey, we're going to automate dispatching, people like didn't want to come close to us.
Yes. And now it's like
taboo.
it's almost like they have to lean in because they feel like this early adopter wave running through the industry. And it's like, like going back to the example of Google and Bing, both are search engines. Both do, you could search. Bing works.
Same fundamental thing.
Bing is not a crap product. Bing works. It's a great, like you look at Bing, it's a great product. It's built for scale. Millions and millions of people use it. But Google has 90% of the search market share. 90%. And what that means is because Google captured most of the resources in that market, they have the most amount of resource to continue investing and reinvesting in innovation and development. So I tell this to people all the time. When you're looking at AI as a contractor and you're looking, okay, what solutions am I going to adopt into my business? And let's say that you have Probook and maybe some other solutions that are doing dispatching software. And you're thinking, okay, which one am I going to pick to the business? People mistake this. People mistake this all the time. They get into a call with a bunch of vendors that do a similar thing, right? And then they get into like a feature comparison. They're like, okay, what does yours do versus what? And then they want to put these features like on a Kanban board and say like, this feature does this and this one does this and this. And I'm like, that is the wrong way to evaluate software for your business. All you are doing, especially with an early technology like AI, we are in the first inning of AI technology. So your company, what you're building now, that is like 1% of what your product's going to be and what your company's going to become, because most of the value is in the future. It's not now. It's in the future. The same for Rilla. Rilla, we're growing really fast and we're like a little bit of a larger scale now, but it's still so early. So most of the value of Rilla is not now. It's in the future. So when you're a contractor and you're looking to buy AI software specifically, and you're trying to compare vendors, the only question you should be asking to yourself, it's not, oh, which one has the nicer design or which one has the best feature, like which one has like the most user. You're not asking any of those questions. The only question you're asking is, who is the leader in this use case for this market? That's it. Who's the leader in this use case for this market? Because that's what's going to tell you who you need to go with. Because whoever the leader in that use case is, the power law says that they're going to continue to be the leader in that use case and that their product's going to continue to be the best, just like Google versus Bing. Google and Bing were probably not that far apart, but Google was clearly the leader. And then the difference is like Uber and Lyft. Uber is worth $100 billion and Lyft is worth like less than $10 billion. So it's like more than 10 times the difference between the first and the second. And so when you're evaluating AI software as a buyer, what you're trying to do is almost like behave like an investor. You're trying to be like, which of these companies, because again, if most of the value hasn't been created, what you're doing is you're
making a bet on information that you don't have yet, but you can see who's going to move faster, who's going to have who's going to have the attention to detail with the customer, that's going to allow the innovation to happen, who spends as much time with the customer and is going to get the nitty gritty, the devils in the details for both of our products. And that's incredibly important.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing that matters. And if you say like, oh, when you're making the bet, you're saying which of these companies will be able to continue to innovate so that they can actually capture most of the value of this product. Not just the company that's going to make the product work. No. Which is the company that's going to continue to innovate to capture the most of the value, because most of the value versus the product that works
hasn't been captured yet.
10 to 20 times different. The only thing you should be asking yourself is like, how do I evaluate this company as an investor, not as a buyer of software, as an investor. It's like, which company would I invest money in? And the way you learn that is you say, okay, instead of asking questions about the product, you ask them questions about the company. How many customers do you have? How many people have retained using your software? How many people are happy? What's your NPS score?
Who are your customers?
Who are your customers? Can I talk to your customers? Can I ask them how they're using it? What are the hiccups? Of course, there's going to be hiccups with a new technology. What you want to know is, hey, when the hiccups happened, how quick were they to fix them? How quickly did they answer your support?
Yeah.
That's what you care about when it's a new use case. Because let me tell you, no matter who it's building, there's so many people doing like dispatch, there's so many people doing ride-alongs, there's so many people doing AI call centers, right? Like all of them are going to have issues because, again, it's a new technology. Think of the internet back in the late 1990s when you had to like dial up or whatever the hell, that
exactly.
horrible noise. You probably didn't even hear that ever because you were not even born, right?
I wasn't, but I know of its existence.
I was born. I was like 4 years old. I was like, what the hell is this demon coming out of this computer? So it's like, it's all going to be like, there's going to be hiccups. But you're betting on the company's ability to solve those hiccups and solve those problems and actually become the best in class at that thing. And so when you're evaluating softwares, I think that the private equity customers understand this because they're very sophisticated kind of investors. They are investors. They invest in businesses.
That is true.
All they're trying to do is they're trying to see like, okay, which one of these...
They're investing in their technology stack.
Yes, they're investing in their technology stack. And so I think that's just so important for people. And when they're evaluating software vendors, it's like, stop evaluating the actual product as it is today and start evaluating the company, because the company is what's actually going to make the product become the best in class or not. 22 years old, you're building one of the fastest growing companies, again, I say ever. And that is annoying for me to say because I used to say that about Rilla. I still say it about Rilla, but it's like, damn it, you're growing faster than us. So, George, what do you think about the future? So you're doing Probook now. You describe a few things that you're building. What do you think? What do you think Probook's going? Where do you think the industry's going? And where do you want to go?
Yeah, we are going extremely deeply vertical on dispatching for the trades. There's other use cases that our customers ask us for all the time. Again, because we're literally on site in person with them all the time. The amount of problems we hear about that they want solved is enormous, and we're taking stock of all of those. We are doing discovery in all of those, but all we care about right now and for the next couple of years is making dispatching literally the best that it can be and be that end stage product that's so refined that it's fully mature. And there's a lot of value and focus. So while I think we are uniquely positioned to get insights that are really hard to get without being in our customers' shops all day long, every day, I think focus and dispatch is so valuable. So that's the future to us. And I'll give you like a little teaser here. Like right now, you've got dispatching, and it's based off of information you can read, jobs, job types, tags, and tags that humans need to put on jobs, right? Like let's say my system is 10 years old. CSR will go in and tag it. Hey, this system's over 10 years old. And that tells Probook like, hey, there's an opportunity to turn, this system into a replacement. But what about customers who's have home values that are really high or home values that are low, or zip codes where certain jobs convert more than others? So there's all these like really deep like external data streams that are really important. And this is just part of going super deep and super vertical in dispatching, that there's so much more to it. There's other parts of the dispatching flow. There's the customer updates that we can do more work with. There's tech debriefs. That could be an interesting Rilla integration. There's another Rilla integration that we were talking about earlier, which is like actually using recording compliance as a variable into the dispatching model. Because if you're willing to record on Rilla, that's a proxy for you being, as a technician, a process follower. And if you're willing to follow the process, like chances are you're following other processes. And likewise, if you're not willing to record, you're also probably not willing to follow other processes. And that should be reflected in the way calls are being, assigned to you, and so on and so forth. So there's so many ways to just go deeper in dispatching. And I am a firm believer on focus. And so we are staying focused, and we are making dispatching what dispatching can really be. And that's really what's next. Like we are innovating dispatching so incredibly deeply that if you've got passion for dispatching and you want more out of it, we would love to talk. Like we are just going ham on dispatching. That's really the future, because of all the other things we talked about with the early adopter curve and consolidation and just pressure to be on that upper part of the, that first chasm there. So that's really what's in the future. Like, we're staying focused, and we are making dispatching the end state product that it needs to be, that it deserves. 'Cause it's such a mission critical workflow. It's literally such a revenue driver. The decision between sending one tech to a call could mean the difference between a $300 repair on a system that really needs to be replaced into a $15,000 unit. So that's really our focus, and that future could not be more exciting. Like, we could not be more obsessed about just going so deep there on dispatching.
Where can people find out more about you and Probook?
Our website's simple. It's probook.ai. We've got some information on there, some people we work with. You can press the book demo button if you'd like to schedule some time and, talk about dispatching, share a bit more about your business, learn about what we're building. You could find me. My email is george@probook.ai. You can text me. I'll give you my cell phone number. Why not? It's 845-542-5751. I've done, this is my third podcast ever, and I had a really good relationship start by giving out
You're gonna regret that so much in a year,
phone
man.
number. Yeah. Let's let it rock.
You're gonna get so screwed, dude.
Let's let it rock for now. So reach out.
How many missed messages do you have right now, by the way? Because I did what you did, dude, and I put my number on our website. I have 599 missed calls, and I have 1,142 missed text messages.
I have 165 missed calls, 41 missed texts. Will was roasting me for my unread emails earlier. I have quite a bit.
So your phone, when you start reaching like a higher level scale, like in a year, you're gonna get so screwed, man. You're gonna have to get a new phone number. I did the same crap. I put my number online, dude, and the amount of spam calls that I get surprised when it's not a spam call. I was like, oh my god, it's a real human
what kind of spam do you get? Is it like completely irrelevant spam, or is it like relevant spam?
No, like it's like salespeople trying to sell me some crap that I don't need. Like, it's like investors like trying to fund Rilla. It's like the car, like insurance. I'm like, I don't have a car. It's like, always get the car warranty. It's just like all this crap. I literally don't like. I tell people, do not call my phone. Just text me, and then I will call you, because I literally don't respond to any calls. it's my fault. So, anyways, you do you, man.
I'll let it rock. I think it'll be okay. Don't make me regret my decision. But in all seriousness, if you're if you're interested in Probook, you're interested in chatting about dispatching, I'd say the best way to reach would just be go to our website, probook.ai, hit that book demo, grab a time on my Calendly, and we'll show you Probook, learn more about your business, and go from there. Or you can call me if you're really wanting to talk about dispatching. I'm happy to do that as well. I leave my calendars open on the weekends too, because why not? We had a demo pop on our calendar the other day for yesterday, and it ended up working out. Very passionate about dispatching. So hit me up. I don't think I'll regret it. Contrary to Sebastian over here.
George, thank you so much, my man. Thank you for
this has
coming
been a lot of fun. Thank you for
awesome.
hosting this. This has been a really good time. This has been fun.
Thank you, man.